studying anti-diabetic drugs, we must be well aware about normal glucose management in our body. So, for normal glucose management, let us consider a schematic diagram of pancreas containing beta islets. So these are two beta islets, and beta islets of pancreas, they consist of two types of receptors. These are GLUT2 receptors and GLP-1 receptors. Now, GLUT2 receptors, these are present on beta cells and they have high value of Km. In other words, their affinity for glucose is low. They are stimulated only when high concentration of glucose is present in the blood. GLP-1 receptors, on other hand, they are stimulated by GLP-1, which is glucagon-like peptide 1, which is an incretin released by gastrointestinal tract when there is presence of food in GIT. It acts on GLP-1 receptors and causes release of small amount of insulin and amylin from these cells. So now, if this is a peripheral cell, these peripheral cells take in glucose with the help of GLUT4 receptors. But these GLUT4 receptors, they are normally internalized in the cell. They are present inside the cytoplasm and not on the plasma membrane. So they need to be translocated on the plasma membrane, which is done by the insulin receptors. Insulin receptors are tyrosine kinase receptors. They are stimulated by insulin and they cause translocation of these receptors to the plasma membrane, and they can take in glucose. So this is how glucose is taken in by the cells, and this is important for prevention of hyperglycemia, which can be very serious. It can result in attraction of water from tissues and drying of neurons and several other complications like hypertension. Now let's try to find out various steps where we can use drugs for diabetes. So this is schematic diagram of gastrointestinal tract and pancreas. Now in pancreas, beta islets are present, which have two types of receptors, GLUT2 receptors and GLP-1 receptors. Now these GLUT2 receptors, as already said, they require high concentration of glucose for stimulation, and GLP-1 receptors can easily be stimulated by GLP-1. So the starch and disaccharides that we take in, they are eventually acted upon by alpha glycosidase to form glucose. Now the presence of glucose in GIT results in secretion of several incretins like GLP-1. GLP-1 is metabolized by DPP-4 because its action is brief, and it acts on GLP-1 receptors and causes brief release of insulin as well as amylin. Now this amylin, it inhibits gastric motility, it decreases gastric motility and provides a feeling of satiety. Now let us consider this is a peripheral cell with insulin receptors and GLUT4 receptors present inside the cell in the cytoplasm. So binding of insulin to insulin receptor causes the translocation of GLUT4 receptors from where they take in glucose from the circulation. Now let us say this is a blood vessel, so the glucose from GIT eventually enters into the circulation. Now this glucose will not be able to stimulate GLUT2 receptors because of its low concentration. How the glucose does not only come from GIT, it also comes from liver. By the process of gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis, glucose is synthesized, which goes into the blood, and also 100% of glucose is reabsorbed by cells in the proximal convoluted tubule, and the active transporter is known as SGLT2. So SGLT2 is responsible for reabsorption of 100% of glucose from proximal tubule, and that glucose also goes into the circulation. Now this glucose will be eventually taken up by GLUT4 receptors into the cells. However, as the concentration of glucose will go on increasing, the high concentration of glucose will stimulate GLUT2 receptors of pancreas. As the GLUT2 receptors of pancreas will be stimulated, this glucose will be taken in by the beta cells and it will be metabolized. So this will result in release of ATP. Now the ATP which is generated will inhibit ATP sensitive potassium channels. As a result, there will be partial depolarization of membrane of beta cells, which will result in opening of voltage gated calcium channels and influx of calcium, and this influx of calcium will cause release of further insulin, and this insulin will be more in amount and it will stimulate insulin receptors, which will be responsible for taking up most of the glucose present in circulation, and this will prevent hyperglycemia in the body. Now, this is a very important mechanism for prevention of hyperglycemia, and from the diagram as it's clear, if there is deficiency of insulin, then these steps cannot occur, so the most of the glucose will remain in bloodstream and that will result in hyperglycemia. Now, for the management of hyperglycemia or diabetes, we can use drugs which act as various steps in this whole process. So initially we can use a drug which will decrease the absorption of glucose itself. We can inhibit the enzyme alpha glycosidase by using alpha glycosidase inhibitors. This is a class of drugs. We can use GLP-1 analogs. We can also use directly insulin, which will produce same action as insulin, or we can use amylin analogs. Apart from this, we can use drugs which will decrease insulin resistance. When insulin is constantly used, it results in creation of insulin resistance, so that can be decreased by class of drugs. And we can use another class of drugs which will inhibit potassium channels. We can use drugs which decrease gluconeogenesis, such as drugs like metformin, etc. And we can use SGLT2 blockers, which will inhibit the reabsorption of glucose from proximal convoluted tubule, and thus they will be very useful in preventing hyperglycemia, and they are quite effective in patients of diabetes mellitus.